I have been looking everywhere for the exact video that you sent me before
I know, and I was going to I will do it tonight. I just wasn't feeling well this morning at all, so it's on
no
my
worries.
list.
No worries. I
I
just
think
wanted
I
this is
think I have that exact video, and I will send it to
brilliant.
you.
Yeah, and if not, the lady, this Tai Chi mum who does these
Yeah,
amazing exercises for just
yeah,
invigorating oneself in the morning, or
right.
whenever, she has a whole like YouTube account and lots of videos. So I'm sure you'd enjoy just kind of pouring through those. So if you can't find it, Linda, I can always just forward the whole
Yeah. Well, give me.
account.
I'll look at it. Look for it tonight. So I'll let you know.
Okay, great. Great. Okay. Well, let's have a look at our companion. And I thought that today, as I'd mentioned in our foundational training, really the kind of crux of this companion is about economy of motion, right? Really trying to move in as efficient a way as possible, and that's really centered on the technique exercise. It's also rather, I would say, on stretch zone A exercise. So I thought perhaps today we could kind of really jump into those two, and I'd let you choose individually if you prefer to either split a little bit of explorations on both the technique and stretch zone A, or if you rather work on stretch zone A, which is more into thumb position, you can prioritize that. And if you prefer to work on first to fourth positions, that's the technique exercise. So I thought we'd start off by doing some work on that together. I know we briefly went over it in the foundational training, but there's really a lot to this exercise, and I think it's worth breaking down and not kind of, just gliding over the top. So on page 14, this is the technique exercise, and we're going to start by doing a little bit of this together. So if you've got your cellos, that's going to be really helpful. Then we're going to have a mini individual time where you get to do your own explorations, and then we'll also have a breakout a bit later. So again, we're going to start by looking at this technique exercise and then a little bit at stretch zone A, and you can decide which one you want to spend a bit more exploratory time with. I'm looking at page 14, the technique exercise. You've also got a list of guidelines on page 10, or tips on page 10, which might be useful to have to hand if you choose. If not, I'm going to be kind of reminding you as we go along of those too. So we are actually going to look straight at the second line of music on page 14. Hi, Judy. And as I mentioned, this is shifting between first and fourth position. So if you, for a moment, on the D string, put your hand in fourth position, that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 on A, B flat, B natural, and C, right? There's our fourth position on the D string. We're going to be shifting to these notes from the fingers and the position from first position. So we're going to be shifting from first position 1 to fourth position 1. Then we're going to shift from first position 1 to second finger in fourth position. Then first position 1 to third finger in fourth position. And last but not least, first position 1 to fourth finger in fourth position. Now that's what we're going to be doing, but how we're going to do it is what's important. So we're going to be slurring 2 notes to a bow, and what we are looking for is as direct a motion as possible. One of the main ways that you're going to get this is by keeping your arm and your hand in particular perpendicular to the fingerboard. That means not doing this, not having the elbow too low, but also not slanting the hand like this or being like this, right? We want to keep the hand pretty much as if we were playing a keyboard this way. So if you, in fact, you may even want to just take a moment to kind of put your hand on the cello fingerboard in this position with your cello over your knee. That's really, in many ways, what we're aiming for for the entirety of the length of the fingerboard. And maybe you'd like to join me in just tracing up and down the fingerboard in this way. What hopefully you'll notice if you do that and keep this angle here the same to the fingerboard, this one, the hand to the fingerboard is the same. If you do that, hopefully you also notice that suddenly your shoulder becomes a bit more involved, right? And actually, hi Janet, we really do want, when we shift, to think about shifting from the shoulder. The shoulder kind of leads the motion, right? So right here, especially as I move into the higher positions, my shoulder feels very engaged. It's really in quite a forward down motion here, forward down space, and then back it comes. And when I'm in first position, I want it to just feel very neutral, no effort, just basically this, just like however you would be normally sitting. And then you lift your hands to the fingerboard in first position. And let's try again, keeping this angle the same to the fingerboard all the way to the end. As you get to the top, that's really where you probably are feeling a little bit of a stretch here with the shoulder, right? Otherwise you're going to be like this. See the difference? This is what we don't want. This is what we want, not this. So these are subtle things to see. They're more pronounced to feel. So it's a small change visually, but we feel it in quite a pronounced way. Again, we want this angle of the hand and fingerboard to be the same throughout the entire fingerboard length. So that's one thing that I think can be very helpful to hold on to when we are thinking about left-hand form and when we're thinking about getting between positions. Another thing that can be really, really important is this idea of release, right? So we all know that when we shift, we tend to squeeze, we forget to relax. And actually, every time you're about to shift, if you imagine you're about to jump, right, from A to B, you have a moment where you're in the air, right? Even if we're still touching the fingerboard, we're lighter, right? Our whole arm needs to be lighter. That involves, therefore, a release. We can't be like, okay, I've got this, I'm going to, from A to B. So now that release with the thumb is going to be timed, actually. It's really a timed release, and how we time it is really, really important. I would suggest, and I think that you'll see this if you look at the play-along videos as well, that you think of dividing each half note on the page 14 into two. And the second quarter of each half note is going to be a release. So if I was going from doing that first bar, E to A, I'm going to think wait, release. When I think release, my whole arm lightens. I've got wait, then I lighten, and my thumb is free, right? So the thumb should be fairly free all the time, but especially in that release moment. So here we go again. I'm going to go 1, release, shift. 1, release, shift. And I'm sort of doing it in such a way that you can see the release with the arm coming up, and that's okay for that to be a very small motion. Ultimately, it's localized, that motion, to the point that you can't really see it, but it's there. So, release. When you release, the shoulder may also, and the elbow may slightly come forward. So it looks like this. Release. And you see how the elbow and the shoulder start to come forward during that release, which then carries us to our position. On the way down, it's the opposite, or the same, but backwards. Release. Release. The arm becomes lighter. Free thumb. Weight, as in gravity, weight. The arm becomes lighter for the release. Free thumb. So let's try that whole of that first line, just thinking about really those two things, the idea of a perpendicular, consistent angle between the hand and the fingerboard, and this idea of a timed release, where the arm goes from feeling heavier to feeling lighter with a free thumb. Okay, so here we go. So ready and 1, release, shift, release, shift, release, shift, going to the second, release, shift, release, release, release. Great, okay, so, and actually it may be that it's a little easier, faster. Of course, we want to practice it always slowly, but that's a big reason why we don't practice things slowly is because it's harder to practice it slowly. So why do we not practice things slowly? That has a lot to do with the bow and not being comfortable with playing close to the bridge and playing with the right amount, with enough natural gravity. So we always have to work on these long open strings close to the bridge to help us with playing slow. But right now, maybe it's a little bit easier to get this feeling a little faster. So let's try it once, exactly the same thing, just a little faster, just to feel it. See if we can get this sense of the timing of the release. We want to go play, release, shift, play, release, shift. And every time I say play, I'm kind of thinking down. So it's like down, up, shift, down, up, shift. Here we go, ready, and down, shift, down, release, shift, down, release, shift, down, release, shift. So you're playing with the weight, so the weight goes down and up, and then you shift, down, up. So that simple act of not only releasing but also timing it can start to make shifts a lot easier. Any of those really tricky shifts, if you think about dividing, especially often it works that you need to divide a note value in two, and the second half of it is where you're going to release. It's not always that case, but a lot of the time it is. So then if you want to be even more economical and think even more about efficiency of motion, you can also pay careful attention to keeping your fingers over the string that you're playing on. And we mentioned this in the foundational training, that we don't have any sense of fingers over here, over the C string when you're trying to play on the D string or on the A string, but really lined up, even if they're not playing, right? So when you go 1 to 1, you don't want to have your fourth finger like this or like this. It should be as if it's about to play the C, even though it's not. So the idea is we're shifting into a position and we're always going to make it so that we have the same position. Yeah, fingers move in a straight line above the same string. We've got rounded fingers, and we're going to shift with the finger that's about to play. So 1 to 1 is obviously shifting with the first finger, but when we go 1 to 2 from E to B flat, we want to put down the second finger before we move. So we're going to go 1, put the second finger down, shift. So we're shifting, the whole shift is actually on the second finger. On the way down, I need to lift the second finger, so I'm back on my first, because that's the next note I'm playing. On the way up, I'm going for the 3. I'm going to put the 3 down in first position and shift on my 3. Then I'm going to lift the 3 in fourth position and shift back on first finger. For the last one, I put my fourth finger down in first position, shift up to the 4. When I'm in fourth position, I lift back to my first finger, shift back to the 1. And of course, we want to ultimately make those joins as subtle as possible, but that's the mechanics of what's happening when you're shifting on the new finger, which is the finger that you're about to play with. So let's see if we can put some of that together. We've got a lot of things to think about. If that's too much, I'm finding it's a lot to think about. So if you feel like you just want to focus on the release, great. If you want to think about fingers over this playing string, great. If you want to think about making sure that you're shifting with the new finger, great. You don't have to do it all together, but ultimately we're going to put these together. So see what feels right now, and let's try the same thing one more time, and then we're going to go through the other exercises briefly. So here we go. Ready, and 1. Release. Down, release. Let the weight fall, release. 4, release, the same idea, but we're starting from the F instead of the E. So we're starting from a second finger. Ready, and
just now, in the first one, when we're going from the 2 to a 1, are you thinking about your first finger? Or would that be, like, when would the first finger come in?
Yeah, so this is a place when you move from a higher finger to a lower finger, like 2 to 1. If you're moving upwards and you're going from a higher finger, any higher finger, to a lower finger, you still can think about the upcoming finger, like the lower finger, the new finger. But you have the option of integrating an inchworm motion there, where you push the old finger out of the way.
Okay.
So if you were doing 2 to 1, then you just push the 2 out of the way. And then the same on the way back, because on the way back we've also got an inchworm motion because you've got a lower finger coming down to a higher finger. And this is explained on page 13 as well, okay. But I know you know about that. But anyway, so yeah, that's explained on page 13. But say an easier way of seeing the inchworm motion, just so that we know, all of us, what we're talking about is if you had, if you look at the last line here where we start on the 4th finger, right? Mm-hmm. So I said if you're going up and you start with a higher finger like 4 and you go up to a lower finger like 1, that's a classic place where you could do an inchworm motion. It's a nice example because we're talking about efficiency of motion. Now, if we did the G to the A 4-1 without doing the inchworm motion, look how far my first finger has to move to get to the A. It basically has to move a whole perfect 4th to get from the E to the A. But a way that I can make it much more efficient is to do this inchworm where I lift the fingers in between 2 and 3 up. And then I let my first finger kind of compress, and so the whole hand is compressing like this by lifting these middle non-playing fingers. I bring the first finger up and it basically pushes the 4th finger out of the way. And suddenly then, I've done this with my first finger, and this shift itself is only from a G because I've pushed the 4th finger G out of the way to an A. So I've made the actual shift really tiny. Rather than a perfect 4th, it's suddenly just become a 2nd.
That's great. And would you say, Sophie, that would you visualize almost like a grace note? Like there's a small, or would you call it a ghost note?
Yes, I think the ghost notes tend to happen when you're playing on the old finger, when you're shifting on the old finger. Like if I was going, let's see, in the first line, if I went 1 to 2, instead of shifting on the new finger, E to B flat, if I shifted on the old finger, my ghost note would be A, and then I would put down the B flat. So for when it's the other way round, it's more kind of gooey. There's not that ghost note.
Right. And what about in this where we're going from F to A and then back to F from the A? You would not play a B flat and then go back to F. In that second measure?
Yes. So there's definitely some kind of like fiddling that's needed to a little bit of hocus pocus with the left hand. Let's see. So if I was going from A first finger to F second finger, then I'll show you what I'm doing. So actually, I'm very slightly pulling my hand this way. I'm kind of trying to take over as much as I can by just pushing, very slightly turning the first finger, pushing the second finger down, and then sliding with the second, without going above the note. Because I don't want to go...
Right.
But I also have to be careful because obviously I don't want to do this too much, because then that undermines the fact that we're trying to avoid having, we really want to keep the hand perpendicular to the fingerboard. So it has to be very subtle. Good question.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, but were you able to kind of, does that make sense? You can
I
see.
think so, yeah.
Linda.
There's Linda.
No, the perpendicular to the fingerboard makes sense to me until I get up into the higher registers, and then I just don't. It seems like I have to lift my arm really high to keep that position. I mean, we're looking to keep that position all the way up, and it feels odd, but it maybe just because I don't usually do it that way.
I think so. Yes, I think that it is also, it's one of those things where you need to do a little bit of extra work to actually make your life easier. And it's ongoing work. As there is a certain muscular sort of engagement that is needed to keep this form, right? We kind of like, there's a form that we're looking for in our playing that is going to allow us to move our arms as freely as possible. And and then part of that is going to be finding the most efficient way to move. Sorry, yes.
Is your wrist hitting the cello anywhere as you go up or not?
It's not. No, it's not. But that's something that...
It's there.
Yeah, it's very common for that to happen, and it definitely used to happen to me. So what I would say for that is, especially when you know that you're about to go into a higher position, and especially around fourth position, be careful not to have the thumb too far under, because what that does is brings your elbow down. In other words, in terms of like affirmative things to do, have the thumb more to the A string side, and it will naturally bring up. See how like it suddenly feels like my wrist is being suspended by a puppet string here.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So it's probably so I think having a good awareness of what the thumb is doing will really help you to have this height of the elbow stay more consistent. It can be a little bit lower here, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great question. Yeah, absolutely. And maybe actually we can briefly look at the stretch zone, and then I'll let you do a bit of individual work, and I'd love to hear any questions and stuff. So because stretch zone goes from fourth position to thumb position, so we're going over the body of the cello. which was relating to your question, Linda. So this is on page 16, shifting from fourth to thumb position. So all of our ideas that we've been discussing, the idea of the weight and then the release and the shift and keeping the fingers over the playing string, the hand perpendicular to the fingerboard, all of these are exactly the same. They still exist, except for we also have this cello thing in our way. So let's have a look at these exercises. The first one is fourth position, E, first finger, and then we're going to slide on the 3 to an A. So immediately you need to think about where you want your thumb to be. Do you want it to be behind the neck? Are you more comfortable with having it on the edge of the cello rim here, around here? That's for you to experiment with, but it's something that you're going to need to make a decision about to do even the first line. So if you're not sure, just choose one, try one, and you can try the other afterwards. So I always put my thumb on the very edge of the rim here, but a lot of people, especially those with bigger hands, keep the thumb back. So here we go, E, release. Notice how the buoyancy of the left arm, so you want a little bit of a kind of feeling of like your arm just floats to the top of the pool when you release. Slightly sinking down, but not too much. When I feel that weight, it's like everything's weighted. I'm not just going, oh, I'm going to drop my elbow. It's this part's weighted too. So it's like the whole plate gets weighted together. Release. 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 And also, Linda, to your point, the release part is the opportunity to let the thumb slide to the A string side, right? You have when you have the weight, thumb is a little bit further under the fingerboard, and then it slides around. The thumb is sliding when I release. So I go da, and then it slides back down. And this is one of the hardest positions to shift from and to, like this shift area, this area is just tricky. So really worth paying attention to all of these different tips and guidelines and seeing how many of them you can hit and check off, hopefully all of them. And then we're going to go from an E to a B. Sliding thumb, that ability to slide the thumb rather than being like, it goes here and it pushes up. So keep that thumb free. If you're finding the sound is really weedy, try to play closer to the bridge. Whenever we're higher, like here, we need to play a lot closer to the bridge. It just doesn't sound as good here compared to... where the core cello sound is. And then the next one is going to thumb. This is the third line down. So now when we go to thumb, and for anybody exploring thumb, or if you'd like to think about doing this soon, this exercise, the third line down, is great because you don't only practice something in thumb position, perhaps with your thumb on the harmonics, but you practice getting there from fourth to thumb. How do we do that? We have to make sure that the thumb comes up and goes down across two strings before we shift. So not after, but before we shift. So on the old note. So I'm on E. My thumb is doing everything before I shift. Up, down, across two strings. And then I shift to the A. Which is across, and it's across two strings. And even if you're making very slight changes in form or shifting here, it's all really worth doing. I think you'll find that you're kind of reining in your motions in the right way more and more and more. And obviously you can continue to refine that over time. It doesn't have to be perfect this week or next week or even by the end of the month, right? It's an ongoing work. Judy, yes?
Oh, um, when you go up to the A on the thumb, then when you're coming back down, do you try to put the one down before you go back?
Yes, exactly. So same kind of idea as what Janet was asking about, with where you have to kind of you have to kind of craftily get the first finger to take over from the thumb, so that you don't hear, because you don't want to go right, or you just want to hear the A and then.
But if you were doing the B, I'm just saying, then you would still change back to the one if you were going back to.
So I wouldn't always necessarily do that at all, but for these exercises, because we're looking at finding the most economical way of moving, the most direct way, and because we don't tend to do that, we don't tend to think this way. I think that all of these exercises are designed to get us more tactilely conscious of the fingerboard. So we're keeping our fingers on the fingerboard much more.
It probably helps to teach us, or teach me at least, how far back it is for that one to back to there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. It's a bigger shift as well. Yeah.
I'm sorry to ask again. I needed to get it straight in my head.
No, I really appreciate it, Judy. And if you'd like to show me, I'd be happy to give you
I
feedback on
can,
thoughts.
I can do it.
Yeah, great. That'd be great.
No, no. Oh, I didn't mean to do it right now. I'm just saying I
Okay.
can do it. I don't need anything else. I'll
You're
be
okay.
okay.
Okay. All right. If
But
you
thank
do,
you. But
yeah,
thank you so much.
you're so welcome. Okay. And then the last two lines, just something that I think could be useful to think about if you're keen to explore those is where the thumb goes. So for the first shift from E to C, where you have first finger to second finger on the C, the thumb is going to be on the A and D harmonics. So you're going to go. So you might want to write that in or just make a mental note that that's where the thumb would be. When you then shift, instead of going to C with the second finger, next bar you go to D with the second finger. You've moved up a whole step, therefore your thumb should be a whole step higher. So instead of D and E, your thumb, D and A, your thumb will be on E and B. So when you go when you go to the D, your thumb should be E and B. That's not easy to do, and it's like you're kind of adding an extra layer of complexity into it, but you're also taking something that's really tricky and forcing yourself to look at it from every angle, which will make it much more grounded in the longer term if you're willing to do a little bit of work like this. And then the next shift is to an E. So then again, you've moved up a whole step from the D second finger to an E second finger, and your thumb would be up a whole step too. So then you're on an F sharp, C sharp. So and if you it doesn't sound great, but those are the notes: F sharp, C sharp. So. And very slowly figuring that out can be really, really helpful. I would say shifting to the third finger in the next line is a little bit easier than the shifting to the second finger, because that's really what we're talking about with where the thumb is going. It's always based on this octave between thumb and 3. So Well, there I keep my thumb back, so I haven't quite gone into thumb position yet. But now I'm going to go into thumb position, thumb up. So I'm playing a D with my third finger and a D harmonic with my thumb. Then I'm going to play an E with the third finger, and therefore, because thumb position, thumb to 3 is always an octave between two strings, it's going to be an E with the thumb. So again, that makes it harder, but we're looking at it as a way of feeling. It's kind of like, it's like deliberately making something harder in order that it then feels easier and more supported because you understand it in more different ways. But a reminder again that this is stretch zone stuff. So if you're like, whoa, that's way too difficult for me, do not worry. This is stuff that takes a lot of time. So the point is to jump in with wherever feels right for you to stretch you now. So why don't we take, I just want to make sure that I know you're kind of experimenting already, but let me give you like at least, let's do like 3 minutes of just individual time, and I'm going to put myself on mute too. And then I'll unmute myself in 3 minutes, and perhaps we can see if there's any questions that may have arisen, or any notes, any observations. Okay, so here we go. As you are working, is it okay if I just make a couple of observations to you individually? Would that be okay? I'll just... No? I'm not allowed to. Only if you're okay with it, let's have a thumbs up. And if I don't get a thumbs up, I'm like... Okay, cool. All right, so let's see. Janet, you're doing... I like what I'm saying there. There's a tendency for you to turn your wrist a little bit this way still. Sorry, not Janet. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I said Janet and I meant Judy. Sorry.
Good.
I meant Judy. Yeah.
Judy's in the hot seat. Good.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a tendency to slightly turn your wrist this way. So that's going to be amended primarily by bringing the shoulder forward a little bit more. Yes, exactly, perfect. And when you're down here, you're a little bit too low. That's it. Yes, that's better. Good. And when you're in fourth position, careful that that you allow your thumb to slide a bit more to the A string side, over here, not under here, so that the arm comes higher. Yes, that's great. Carla, your position looks good. You're doing, yeah, I love how slowly you're working as well. That's great. It's really, really good. So Janet, one of the things I was noticing was how your whole arm moves as one. So you, which is great, and I think that's in many ways like what's probably what we're aiming for, right? Is this kind of sense of things are glued together. We have one connected side. We don't want to have too many joints, right? So I was really enjoying that. I was like, oh yes, yeah, exactly. And Steve, it looked like you were playing a lot of fast, tricky bits. So I saw a lot of stuff going on down here with that. How do you feel? How's it going? How are you getting on there?
Well, I was just doing some crazy stuff, but I realized that, like, for example, when you want to shift up to the thumb position on the A, I sometimes do scales up there, and then I realize, well, my fingers aren't really, they're not in the right position. So I was realizing you could, I mean, you're on E, and then D is right below that, so you could actually go down a string, and you could sort of be playing around with little etudes, having to do with this shift.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a really nice Starker exercise that's derived from, I think it's Haydn D major, where he does a scale. So he starts with thumb on D and A harmonics, and he goes.
But see, the new thing from your work here is this idea that usually I'll just do a scale, and then I'll fiddle around trying to get the fingers right. But I think the idea of doing the shifting, continuously shifting back, because then that's going to put this extra burden on you to shift and get your fingers in the right position.
Yes,
you
yeah,
mentioned
absolutely. The reason that I thought of Starker's exercise was because you could adapt it to shifting, but also it allows you to just focus on form in the higher areas, because you were talking about doing scales up there.
Oh no, that sounds like a good exercise. Is that in his book?
Yeah, I think it is. I can't remember which page, but yeah, I think it's there. Yeah, but I mean, you can also just memorize it now. It's not difficult. It's basically just the idea of a scale. And then you could do the first finger on the next string on the G string if you want to. You don't have to. You could just do a scale. And then just move the thumb up a whole step or a half step as you choose. And then... But the idea is, well, however much you want to shift around, is that that also gives you a chance to really stay in in a position that where the fingers have to be above the string, ready to play, and it's it's going to avoid you taking fingers off in an unwanted way or having too much
Yeah.
tension, hopefully, in one finger.
And then the other thing I did was doing octave scales, which seems really difficult, but I suppose if you practice it enough, you could get it right, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Just make sure you focus in on the lower octave, so the thumb
Yeah.
string. If
That's
you're
the
doing
part you never end up. That's the part you don't usually do, especially down low.
exactly,
So
we tend to
kind
just
of,
automatically hit focus on the higher string,
yeah.
but actually the lower string is the one that's going to give us the better results, and it's going to sound. It'll sound better, and also for some reason we learn to play more in tune that way faster when the lower octave is a bit stronger. Great. Okay. Well, why don't we do a mini breakout session? And I'd love for you to just use this opportunity to share with your breakout partner maybe what music you're working on at the moment, something that you noticed today, maybe a question that you still have. So let me put you in breakout rooms momentarily, and we'll do let's give you another 3 minutes or so for this. Unless anybody's got another question burning now that they wanted to. Yes, Kimberly.
I need to scoot,
You want to go?
so
Okay.
I
Okay.
do, yeah. But thank
Okay.
you. This was, as always, just great, just awesome.
Oh, yay. Great. Thanks, Kimberly. Good to see you. Enjoy your
Thanks.
dinner.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye. All right. Let's go. Let's do some breakout rooms, and then we'll come back for a closing. So, go. Go. Okay. So you should be able to join those now.
We're back.
Hello.
Welcome
Thanks,
back.
Janet.
So, any interesting observations that anybody would like to share, or aha moments,
Well,
questions?
Janet was helpful to me because she's like, I should get a mirror in front of me. And I don't like looking at myself really, but it's probably be a great idea because then I would realize that my shoulder's not going over and that my thumb might be getting too far over, like you said. So I
Yeah,
thought Janet's, and then I was telling Janet that I was trying to use my body with the box stuff in order to, to make stuff go up and down and dynamic some. And it seems to be helping from what you had showed us,
oh, that's
taking,
great.
pushing our chest out.
Yes,
It's
yes,
very
yeah. I think
helpful. Yeah, the
good.
chest up thing makes all the difference.
Right.
Uh-huh.
That's what I've been finding too. Like for the upper half, for the second half of the bow, the upper half of the bow, but also whenever you shift up, just
Say
to
it one more time, Sophie, about the
so
bow.
whenever you're playing in the upper half of the bow, it can be very helpful to think of lifting the chest.
Okay.
But also whenever you shift higher, it can be useful to think about, and especially on the D string, to think about lifting the chest because the D string we just tend to cave in on ourselves more,
Uh-huh.
and it's the
Uh-huh.
weaker string anyway. So if you kind of it can be helpful on the D as well. That's great. Yeah, even when we're doing these sessions, I'm always aware of how much I'm using the reflection of myself to check that I'm demonstrating something like okay, and I'm like, actually the point of my bow is moving a bit too much. So you can also, just put an iPad or a phone on selfie mode, and you don't have to video it, right? You can just
Yes,
have
she
it there.
mentioned that too. It's a good
Yeah,
idea.
yeah. If you don't have easy access to a mirror, it could be. Um, Great. Any other things that anybody would like to share? So I thought that next time for our play session, we would look at the swan and we'd kind of explore the same ideas, but also taking them into a more artistic space and have a look at all of those shifts. So that's the plan for play session number 2. But for today, perhaps you could just take a moment to reflect on one way that you are going to use something that you've learned today in your next practice session. So how could you take this shifting motion, this idea of perpendicular hand to fingerboard, economy of motion, all these ideas, what kind of area of your cello practice, maybe a piece, maybe studies, maybe just practice room material, might you plan to incorporate this in your next practice session?
Well, I could say, I think that on the adagio that I'm working on Schubert's thing, that I could use that when I'm going up and thumb to
Beautiful.
different things to help
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, that's a classic one because it's right over the same sort of like fourth to sixth and thumb
Uh-huh.
position.
It's
Yeah,
the same
right.
type things.
The adagio. That's the adagio from the slow movement of the Schubert arpeggione
Mm.
that Julie's working on. Great. Any other thoughts of some way that you plan to incorporate it, or perhaps an area of it that you want to explore a bit more? Yes, Linda.
Yeah, I think I'll put. I've been. I do a lot of. I'm playing in some position quite a lot, and so I have been playing not perpendicular
Mm.
with with that. I
You're not.
try and try and try, and so for me, it's like its own etude. It's its own study. So
Mm.
I'm going to put that into warm up and really work on that,
Great.
getting the position comfortable, because I can play the notes not doing that, but I cannot do that. It's like I have to cut my fingernails way, way down to
Yeah.
be able to maintain that position on the
Yeah.
string, and not lean on the cello. So that
Mm.
for me is like a warm up reminder, like every time.
Perfect. That sounds great. Yeah. Yes. I think that sounds great. What was I going to say? Just to bear in mind as you're doing that you shouldn't feel like you need to do anything different with your hand itself. It's the way your hand is supported by everything else, all of this, right? So it's the shoulder and the elbow that needs to move so that your hand is in the right position. You don't have to do something uncomfortable with the hand itself.
But for me to keep the in good position,
Uh-huh.
my nails have to be really short because I
Yes.
keep, you know what I mean. Otherwise, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone once said all you need to do as a string player is to keep your nails short.
It's true, it's true. Yeah, I've had, like 15, 16-year-old girls turning up with these beautiful long nails. I'm like, your nails look so beautiful. I'm really sorry.
But thank you. That's a good tip. Don't worry about the hand so much. Get the shoulder in place.
Yes, get the bigger muscle groups supporting the hand. So
And I suppose you just can lay your bow on your hand. If you're in the right position, your bow should go with
yeah.
you.
Yes, and I think quite a lot of work on just finding the position without playing is good because it's much easier to do it when you're not trying to get a note out with the bow as well and pushing
Sounds
down.
much better.
In my head,
Sounds really great when there's only.
yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, I hope you have a lovely rest of the evening there, and I look forward to next time. Take
Thank
care.
you, Sophie.
Bye.
Great seeing all of you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Nice to see
Bye,
you all.
everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.